This is TDS but in 2019, and this is TDS but in 2025. There's some subtle differences. I don't know if you can spot them. Nah, I'm kidding. They look completely different games, and that's only natural over a 6-year period, of course. The game's going to change quite a lot, but the game has changed so drastically that some people on the internet have accused the game of becoming less fun. But has it? In this sort of mini docu-series, I'm going to attempt to answer that question, and the series will be released over 3 parts. One today, one on Friday, and the final finale on some future date, probably next week. So subscribe so you don't miss any of those installments. Today, we're going to take a look at what actually made old TDS so fun and encapsulating. One big thing I think made old TDS fun was, of course, the higher difficulty. Most of TDS now kind of feels a bit like a pusher with very little thought. Of course, it's not like old TDS was impossible. Mostly, but more like Fallen would actually take a well-coordinated team with a balanced loadout. Now, as long as 3 of you have pretty good DPS, you're effectively golden. Not golden mode, that's gone. Of course, a high difficulty doesn't mean more fun, and there are faults of this argument. A big one being, of course, the fact that if it's harder, it's surely more range-inducing, and while yes, some of old TDS bordered on it being more unfair, most of old TDS was harder and still doable. Take, for example, Badlands. Whilst it's been upgraded and harder on paper, you've got 3 paths instead of 2, and way harder enemies with a gunslinger instead of the Fallen King. You also have access to towers like the Engineer and the Accelerator, which you may not have had access to during normal Badlands, and with it still being fairly difficult, with 2 much shorter lanes that easily got overwhelmed, Badlands 1 was certainly harder, and, well, in my opinion, and this made the extremely underwhelming Cowboy all the more worth it. No, what I'm trying to say is that the special game modes and even the normal game modes gave you a way rougher time than they do currently, and of course a massive factor of this is just how stupidly unbalanced old TDS was. Like, it was basically just Razuatics and Below Natural doing the balancing, and Below Natural can't balance shit. That's a no, I'm sorry. It was really bad. While most towers currently in the game are usable and have their purpose, in old TDS that certainly was not the case. Cowboy was about as useful for making money as a coked up pigeon, as his money generation was so sporadic. I want to know what funky juice he was drinking to produce those numbers. It was just like, I don't know, $52, $42, $37. It's not fun. RNG isn't fun, and I'm pretty glad that's been eliminated from the game. Pyromancer actually sped up the enemy, so why the fuck would you use him? And Freezer couldn't stop anything for more than 0.1 of a second. With all of that said, and the fact DPS towers were very limited, and the output they did pales in comparison into the silly numbers we're now used to, and mind you, like, enemies like the Void Reaver still had the combined 1.4 million HP. Now, with all of that pure waffle said, why is harder more fun? Well, in simple terms, it means that you simply have to play smarter. It's a lot more engaging, and you can't just switch off your brain with old TDS as you could with current TDS, which I find more fun. TDS's looks have certainly changed over the last few years, quite drastically at that. And to me, TDS's looks definitely contributed to why I found it so encapsulating. And for one simple reason, it had personality. TDS now kind of almost seems soulless in comparison, in a way, to at least its, graphical design, and it's gone from like a kind of arcade-esque retro Roblox style design to a more military one of that. But of course, why the hell does that make retro TDS so fun? Like, Grow Garden has that retro Roblox style, and that game shined. Well, old TDS was not only more arcadey in its looks, but also its gameplay, with a much simpler progression system without the idea of, like, skill trees and gem towers to an extent, and I mean, you had platinum towers for beating certain challenges, which was like, I think it was 7. You had to beat 7 all modes on like 7 maps, something like that. But old TDS's progression was very more like, right, you gotta beat this mode to upgrade your loadout to actually be able to consistently beat it. Now, do that like 4 times and try and take on Fallen. Now it's more like, right, beat the tutorial, get to level 15, use Scout to get to like wave 20 odds of intermediate mode, lose, buy Hunter, get even further into intermediate mode, buy Militant, and beat intermediate mode, then die in Molten mode like a million times and attempt Fallen. A lot less linear. You skip a lot of the earlier modes, like easy and casual, don't exist effectively in this TDS version. They're only really used by me for doing challenges, like the one where it's like beat, I don't know, the heights twice, because it's way easier. Which, of course, is fine, if that's what you like. But old TDS was more fun to progress through, as you almost worked your way through the modes and learnt them, and what you needed to defend, and when, and how the enemies worked, and, like, you know, you kind of had to minimalise your loadout, you kind of have to... I'm waffling here. Of course, the biggest reason old TDS seems so fun, or so much more fun, is nostalgia. Well, was TDS actually more fun back then? On paper, no, let's be real, it really wasn't. Because current year TDS has a larger variety of things to collect, things to play for, and all the towers are, well, actually viable. But I'll get more into that into parts 2 and 3. So why do most players who join in like 2020 to 2021 prefer old TDS, and obviously, of course, before that? And why is there such a market for retro TDS games? Well, of course, it's because of nostalgia. You probably look back fonder on that part of your life, or it's your childhood, it's your formative years more, or it's your more formative years than you are currently, probably. That's my guess anyway, that's my assumption, this is what it is for me. Or at least you look more fondly of your TDS career back then. So of course it's going to seem more fun, as that's all you remember it being. You most likely didn't have everything in TDS, and thus had something to work for. You know, you had your platinum skins if you were around back then, you had your golden skins, you still might have those, and then even when new towers got released, and like the Brawler and the Engineer, you had the gems to work for that for. Like, if you're like me, you've probably got around about 60 odd thousand coins, and not a max skill tree, because come on, no one's maxing that. But like, you have things to work towards, but there is like little to no point for me logging on, so I'm not going to find it as fun to play TDS, because like I don't have to. No, I don't have to, but I don't have anything to work towards. When I've got something to work towards, and especially when I look back, I had something to work towards in like 2021, beating the Frost Invasion event and getting good at that, because I joined properly in the Halloween 2020 event, which was a long one, and so when the Frost Invasion 2021 event came around, they just didn't have the towers equipped to it. Well, I was joined at the very end. Didn't have the towers equipped to beat it. So like, I had to work towards them. I rushed because I didn't realize it was going to take about 9 months to make the next update. But you know, that's fine. And that's, you know, now I just play every update or so, and like you probably do too. So of course it's going to seem more fun long ago, because you had something to play for, and you probably enjoyed playing for that. So that's part 1 of this 3-part series concluded. Let me know why you think old TDS seemed to be more fun, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it like a like, as it really does help me, and the video in the algorithm, and subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss part 2, same time on Friday, where we'll have a look into what makes TDS currently fun, and then back again next week probably, I don't know. We'll have an evaluative look at whether old TDS has become less fun, or if you lot just all have your nostalgia goals on. So it's goodbye from me for now, and I'll see you in a few days.